The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Now, here's Carl Gallows.
All right, welcome back, Gulf Coast. Welcome back, America, to another edition, live, Freedom Friday with Carl Gallows, 1330 WEBY, 25,000 watts of broadcasting power. Broadcasting to 4 states along the Gulf Coast and all over the world by live stream on the Internet. I want to thank our listeners from Molokai, Hawaii to Upper State New York and everywhere in between. We get your emails, we get your phone calls, we get your postings on Facebook and YouTube, etc. A lot of emails coming into WEBY studios, and we thank you for that. Thank you for listening, and thank you for the input. I mean that. I wish that I had time to personally respond to each one of them, but I just don't. But not everybody asks for a response, and so I appreciate that. But we do appreciate the great feedback. And, of course, we have an international audience through our podcasting. This program today will be podcast for our listeners who will be waking up when we're going to bed, and they'll be downloading it and listening to it, and we appreciate that. And we get your emails and postings as well. In the meantime, you are with us, and you are with us live. We've got a great lineup for you today. Dr. Jerome Corsi has some breaking information and news about Syria, and plus he has written some investigative pieces in the last couple of days. He's been all over talk radio and revealing what may, in fact, really be going on in Syria, particularly in regards to the chemical weapons and Obama's ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. We'll talk about those connections, etc. But we'll have Dr. Corsi up. And then after Dr. Corsi, Mike Shoesmith, the executive director of the P.P. Simmons News and Ministry sites. We'll take your phone calls during that time if you'd like. And then after Mike, Dr. Grace will be up. She is the editor of the Politics and Culture division and section of World Tribune, also the host of American Heartland with Dr. Grace out of North Carolina. So we'll have Dr. Grace with us. And then rounding out the show this evening will be Dr. James Fitzgerald. He has just written a blockbuster new book, The 9/11 Prophecy, and we'll talk with him about that book and his amazing story and his placement in New York right before 9/11 and the prophecy that he gave before it happened. You don't want to miss that. And as I said, we'll start the show with Dr. Corsi in just a second. Dr. Corsi is on the line, so I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. Dr. Corsi, thank you so much for being with us today.
Good to be with you, Carl. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to have you. Dr. Jerome Corsi is a Harvard Ph.D., and he's WND senior staff reporter. He's authored quite a few books, including 2 New York Times #1 bestsellers. The Obama Nation was one of them, and Unfit for Command was the other one. Dr. Corsi's latest book is What Went Wrong. That's the title. The subtitle is The Inside Story of the GOP Debacle of 2012 and How It Can Be Avoided Next Time. And then he's got another book coming out, I think it's just next month, entitled JFK. Isn't it next month that it's coming out, Dr. Corsi?
It is. It'll be out about the 15th of the month.
Yeah, okay. And really, really look forward to that book as well.
Yeah, it's about Who Killed JFK.
Who Killed JFK? Okay, all right. So,
who really killed him, I think it's called. Who Really Killed him.
Okay. Who Really Killed JFK? All right, we've changed the title of your book 3 times here.
That's okay. What it is. Who Really Killed JFK?
Who Really Killed JFK? All right, I'm going to write that down so I get that right. And I really look forward to reading that book. Well, listen, Dr. Corsi, we've got so many things we want to talk to you about. You wrote just a few days ago a wonderful investigative piece, and then I heard you on several talk radio programs as well, and immediately shot you an email, said, please come on Freedom Friday and share this with our audience. And you so graciously agreed to be with us. But you believe, or at least you have some evidence that points to the possibility that these chemical weapons that are going off over in Syria are not necessarily being deployed by Assad and his regime. Tell us what you know about that, what you suspect about it, and how you found this information out.
Well, this is the general thinking around the world, is that the rebels are the ones using the chemical weapons in Syria. And on WND, I published a series of video tube videos, showing from the Middle East, captured from television in the Middle East, showing rebel forces in Syria launching chemical attacks.
Right.
Even President Obama this is a very strange crisis that's created. I've been writing that President Obama, from the very beginning, said that he felt the Assad regime was illegitimate and he wanted Assad out, just like Obama called out Mubarak in Egypt and he called out Gaddafi in Libya.
Right.
And it seemed to be very possible that this chemical weapons attack issue is just a pretext to go in and strike Assad, which is what Obama wants to do.
Right.
I've been writing extensively in the WND that I think Obama is very closely tied to the Muslim Brotherhood in the Islamic world. And, of course, the Muslim Brotherhood was outlawed under the Mubarak regime in Egypt. It's a very bad group. If you take a look at who these Syrian rebels are that Obama wants to support, these are the Al-Qaeda remnants that are, actively probably more active than ever, actually, in Syria right now. There are various Muslim Brotherhood terrorists. Many of the people fighting as rebels, so-called rebels in Syria, came into Syria with weapons supplied to them from Libya, through Turkey, and very likely supplying those weapons and shipping those terrorists through Turkey to Syria was one of the last things that Ambassador Stevens was doing before he was killed at Benghazi. The last meeting that day, 9/11, 2011, that when the Benghazi attack occurred, was between Ambassador Stevens and one of the diplomatic officials from Turkey.
Right.
Undoubtedly, they were talking about weapons transfers.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, and you've answered exactly what my next question was, and that wasn't that what Benghazi was
Sure.
about? Absolutely. And also, you raised an interesting point when he was calling out Mubarak and Gaddafi. But I remember, and you can correct me now if I'm remembering wrong, Dr. Corsi, but during the so-called Arab Spring, within just days, maybe weeks after it broke out Egypt and Libya, it began to break out in Syria too, right?
Well, that's right. I mean, this Arab Spring, which President Obama falsely sold, and I think he knew it.
Yes.
As a democracy movement, is nothing but. I mean, this has been a rise of the Muslim Brotherhood, a rise of all of the forces that all the Al-Qaeda forces that have been re-energized. The Arab Spring has destabilized Northern Africa and destabilized the Middle East. And look, believe me, there are no good forces in Syria to get behind. I mean, Assad is a cruel, genocidal dictator that has Hitler characteristics to him, and Assad backs Iran and has been a conduit through Syria for weapons from Iran, missiles and the like, going into Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, joining northern Israel. So, Assad's not a good guy. But then again, the rebels aren't good guys either. They're Al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood.
Right.
So, essentially, what's playing out in the Middle East right now are dimensions most Americans aren't prepared to understand. Turkey is vying to reestablish the Ottoman Empire, which Turkey ruled for hundreds of years, a secular caliphate, a Sunni Israel movement. And you've got the Shiites who are, largely aligned with Assad, and Assad is neither Shiite or Sunni, he's Ba'athist.
Right.
Which, by the way, goes back to the Mufti of Jerusalem in Hitler's time, which is the origins of the Muslim Brotherhood.
That's right.
Created as an organization designed to kill Jews.
Right, 1928. Yeah.
And Hitler and the Mufti of Jerusalem were close friends. The Mufti of Jerusalem was entertained in Berlin by Hitler.
Right.
The whole birth of the Muslim Brotherhood has been a radical terrorist organization hating Jews and wanting to establish extreme Islam in the Middle East. And if you go back, far enough and look at the history, you'll see that Yasser Arafat, who headed the PLO in its heyday, was not a Palestinian. Yasser Arafat was Egyptian-born, and he was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. This was all a plot and a plan to destabilize Israel. These PLO Muslims that were Palestinians were really kind of a displaced people that have been thrown out of Jordan, they've been thrown out of Lebanon, and they finally ended up in the West Bank and Gaza.
Right. And here's the million-dollar question, Dr. Corsi. You and I know all of that, and we're pretty smart guys, and we do a lot of research. And I'm not even in your league of intelligence. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm saying I knew it. I mean, and if I knew everything you're talking about, it's a foregone conclusion that Obama knows all of this. Now, if Obama knows all of that and still was instrumental in instigating what we call the Arab Spring, then he's behind all this. I mean, he knew what he was doing. This is not just bad diplomacy or some mismanagement of Middle Eastern affairs. I truly believe that he's orchestrating something that falls into the hands of the Muslim Brotherhood. Do you have any feelings about that?
Well, I think clearly, I mean, this is part of, I've been doing a lot of reporting on this, Carl, and you can take a look at some of the articles. I mean, I've reported in WND that a document that we've obtained from Egypt, which is a document out of the Morsi government, that Obama, the administration was evidently paying millions of dollars as bribes to Muslim Brotherhood leaders in the Morsi government.
Right.
The money was coming from the United States Obama administration, completely unauthorized, no congressional involvement, worse than Iran-Contra in terms of the amounts of money, the dollars, because some of the Muslim Brotherhood leaders in Egypt were getting $850,000 a year,
right,
as a bribe, paid through our U.S. Embassy to the foreign ministry of the Morsi government. And what the document we published was essentially a receipt where these Muslim Brotherhood leaders came in and signed for their money, documenting that they had this bribe received and transferred from the United States government. Now, if it turns out, and by the way, remember the Muslim Brotherhood was outlawed under the Mubarak regime. It's a terrorist organization.
That's right.
It goes
they sure
back
were.
to Hitler and the elimination of the Jews from the Holy Land. At any rate, these Muslim Brotherhood leaders are now imprisoned in Egypt under the current government, the military government, and one of the charges will be that the Muslim Brotherhood leaders were spies because they were taking money from the Obama administration. And they have, the Morsi government prosecutors have the receipts, just as we do it with WND, and the newspapers in Cairo are saying these receipts will be used in the trials, in which these Muslim Brotherhood leaders are going to face the death penalty for their criminal activities supposedly in Egypt. Now, again, it's Obama supporting the Muslim Brotherhood.
Right.
And he can't do this openly because American people would realize, that's support of radical Islam.
Right.
It's a support of the same forces that have attacked the United States. Remember, Morsi, when he came in to power in Egypt, as the end of the, voted in at the end of the Arab Spring, came in saying he wanted to release the blind sheik from the United States.
Right.
The blind sheik, back to 1993, was the mastermind of the first bombing of the World Trade Center, 1993, in the Clinton administration.
Right.
So, Obama looks to be in the middle of advancing the interests of this terrorist
of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Brotherhood.
Yeah, which is a violation of the NDAA, by the way.
Well, it's a violation of all kinds of things.
Yeah,
treason.
Sure. Yes.
It's essentially treason.
Yes, it is. It is. And listen, we've got to take a quick time out.
If this were all proved and validated in a court of law or before Congress, the charges would be more than enough to impeach Obama.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to talk about that on the other side of the break, Dr. Corsi. We've got to take about a 3-minute time out. When we come back, this fascinating conversation with Dr. Jerome Corsi, senior staff writer at WND, author of several New York Times #1 best-selling books. You're listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. Mallory Bardwell, your world-famous producer. We'll be right back.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.